Okay, so I got interrupted by having too long of a video. I guess 10 minutes was max, so I'm just going to put a part two in here and go from where I left off. As I was saying, my favorite part of this segment was just before the Miz Taraj came out with when Seth Rollins was teasing whether or not he was going to accept the challenge from Finn Balor. And he says something about butt, and Finn Balor says, I like that butt. And I just thought that was funny. I was laughing. Anyway, so the Miz Taraj comes out, and they say that last week when they approached Seth Rollins and then Finn Balor to join them and create a new Shield or create a new Balor Club, they said that they went about it wrong. They should have approached both of them. And since there's four of them, and they had these really terrible T-shirts with pictures of all four of them, and they said they should be the the four horsemen. I don't know if they were supposed to recognize that it was already done, or if they were trying to be the new four horsemen. But it kind of seemed like even though they have pedigree, I think they're both second or third generation wrestlers, that they wouldn't know that there was already a four horsemen. But whatever. Anyway, of course, both Seth Rollins and Finn Balor turned that down, and they beat them up. And or I think the Miz Taraj attacked first, but anyway, then Finn Balor hits I guess, a Big Show's curtain call on Seth Rollins, and Seth Rollins is just like, oh, I should have seen that coming, and that was a little weird. It should have been a little more heat for that move, but of course, Finn Balor's a babyface. They're going to put him over as well. It's just smart. It's just smart that he did that. But whatever. Then we had a Sasha Banks interview, and Sasha Banks basically says that the Riot Squad are here to take over, and if she has to do it alone because Bayley doesn't seem to care, then she will do it alone. And so that leads into a match between her and Ruby Riot, where it's just her out there. So, of course, there being three members of the Riot Squad, having Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan out on the outside with the interference and blah, blah, blah. And Ruby Riot wins. Although Ruby Riot had a few sweet moves in this. Just a second turnbuckle reverse senton, as low as it was, for some reason she just made it look so brutal, and they really got that over on commentary. And then the Riot kick with Sasha Banks up on the turnbuckle in the corner. Yeah, that second tier Riot kick was pretty sweet looking too. So it was a good match. It just was kind of predictable. Although I guess you could say that you could hope that Sasha Banks would somehow overcome the 3-on-1 odds. But yeah, it was a good match though. And then we had a Moment of Bliss, week 2, with a Moment of Bliss, and that was Alexa Bliss doing her PSA about a Disney World trip that she had with Nia Jax, where Nia Jax spent the whole trip making fun of Alexa for being short and doubting if she could be on the rides, including, and she says, the teacups. And she said, they're just teacups. You just sit there. And she does so well telling these stories, and just her facial emotions and the way she gets across this terrible storyline is just great for her, but still a terrible storyline. So I don't know really how to feel about this, but Alexa Bliss is just a great actress, I guess, and it's tolerable to watch her do a bad bullying storylines. And it was kind of funny, the story, I guess, imagining Nia Jax laughing at her having to order from the kids menu with a couple of turkey legs and just cackling. That was funny, but overall, I'm not a fan of the Moment of Bliss storyline, and I hope the Moment of Bliss keeps going with her future storylines. Just better not being bullied by a non. Anyway, reverse bully syndrome storyline, I guess. Then we had Titus O'Neil backstage being interviewed by, I believe, Renee Young. Maybe not. It doesn't matter who interviewed him. He played off the trip, saying, at first he tried to say he planned that, and then he said, no, I just tripped. But the important thing is to get up and continue on after tripping and falling. And Baron Corbin comes out for no reason, seemingly, other than just to be a dick and say, it would have been more inspiring had you not tripped in the first place. But, you know, 49 other men came out to the ring and didn't trip and slide under the ring, and nobody was talking about their last, 8 to 10 feet coming to the ring, just Titus. And they really buried that video repeat of him sliding under the ring into the ground, but it is funny. It is super funny. I kind of wish that spot hadn't been ruined for me by being on social media at work before I could get home and watch the Greatest Royal Rumble, but it was still hilarious to watch. So that leads into a Matt and Bray promo. Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt, basically, it kind of, what I brought up with them last week about meshing their characters, it kind of answers that a little bit, where they're not trying to mesh Bray and Matt, they're trying to bring them together, but they're still the light and the dark. My problem with this is that it seems like the dark is winning more than it should. Like, Bray Wyatt shouldn't still be too dark. Like, he lost the feud. He lost the match, the ultimate deletion match. He got thrown into the Lake of Reincarnation. He needs to be different somehow, not just a face now. Although I gotta admit, now that he is a face, I'm glad that he's a face. It's been a long time coming, but that shouldn't just be the only thing that they change. They need to change something else with Bray, and putting him with Matt gives him a basis for a character change that actually would make sense if he was to be a little more like a woken Matt Hardy or a woken Brother Nero. But we'll see where they've still got time with this. They've still got evolution to have with this tag team. So we'll see if they mesh them better. I hope they do. I hope they mesh them together better instead of just explaining why they don't bother to mesh them at all. So then we had Lashley and Strowman and Roman Reigns in the 6-man tag against Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Jinder Mahal. And of course, the babyfaces won. And I don't want to say too much about this match other than it seems like Braun Strowman is going to become the king of the hot tag, because the crowd was super hot for him to get that tag at the end. And it just, that's what they're building to when he never gets a tag during the whole match. It just keeps being a tag between the other two guys. So they're waiting for a spot where, I think in this case, Bobby Lashley was struggling to get the tag, and then he gets the hot tag, and Braun Strowman takes out everybody. It was an entertaining match though. Then we had No Way Jose and Baron Corbin, where Titus comes out to essentially get Baron Corbin back for disrespecting him during his promo, and it was mildly hilarious for them wiping down the last few feet of the entranceway so that he wouldn't slip. But it was quickly brought back down to not so hilarious with his fake trip up trying to get into the ring. Obviously fake, obviously planned. And for some reason, even though Baron Corbin said there was going to be no smiles, he smiled when that happened. So I guess that makes up for the fact that he got rolled up from behind for the pin. And No Way Jose defeated Baron Corbin. So yeah, Baron Corbin gets drafted from SmackDown to Raw, only to go up against somebody that was just called up from NXT obscurity, and he gets buried as well. So this is paying off for my prediction for the talent from SmackDown coming to Raw and being buried, but it's still not good for them. It's not really good for me. It's not like I could place a bet on that. That would be nice. Let's see. We had the next match was Natalya versus Mickie James, where Natalya brought Ronda Rousey out with her, and Mickie James brought Alexa Bliss, and Natalya wins because Rousey gets pissed off at Alexa Bliss for trying to interfere in the match and chases her down. Alexa runs up the ramp, and then Nia Jax comes out, and yeah, that's all you see of Nia Jax. Nia Jax really hasn't been shown very much in the last few weeks. Hasn't had a match since, I believe, WrestleMania. So it's going to be interesting to see how they portray her come this Sunday at Backlash. But let's see. I think just before the main event, we had a promo for Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre, one of the camera selfie promos, where they are essentially shirtless in a hotel room together. So take from that what you want. Still decent promo. I can't wait to see them actually have a feud and get a couple of really good matches in with maybe go ahead and do the tag team champs, the Woken Warriors or Deleters of Worlds or whatever. But there's a few other good tag teams on Raw that I can't wait to see a few good matches with these guys to see if they're going to actually be a tag team or if this is just a gimmick to put them together for a while to break them up and split them into singles runs. But we'll see where that goes. And then we had the main event, which was a great match between Seth Rollins and Finn Balor, as if the two would have anything but a great match. My favorite spot of the match was where Seth Rollins went for the top rope suplex into the Falcon Arrow, and Finn Balor actually countered and did the Falcon Arrow onto Seth Rollins. I thought that was going to be the end of the match. I thought that would have been a great end to the match. But Seth Rollins retained with a curb stomp, and it was a great match, and it slightly makes me look forward to Backlash and his match with The Miz, other than the fact that there was no interaction between him and The Miz, even though they're on separate shows. Really, when The Miz Taraj came out, it should have been The Miz. Or maybe they shouldn't have, abandoned The Miz a couple of weeks ago, and maybe they brought a message from The Miz, and then they could play a video spot on the Titantron. Maybe something. But anyway, it hypes me for Seth Rollins because he's been on such a tear the last couple of months, especially after that gauntlet match on Raw a few months ago. So I guess it kind of makes me look forward to Backlash, but being a go home Raw for Backlash, it really didn't make me want to watch Backlash any more than just the fact that I'm going to watch it anyway. So I'm going to move on to SmackDown Live, which I thought was a slightly better show, even though it only had 3 matches. And the first match, I believe, starting toward the beginning of the show, because you had Miz TV start off the show. But then the second match wasn't into the second hour of SmackDown. So for a very promo heavy show, it was still slightly better than a 3-hour Raw. So take that for what you will. So as I said, SmackDown started off with Miz TV, and Miz says that Daniel Bryan, and by the way, we are back to full heel Miz. I don't think they had any mention of him being a new guy, a new person, because of having a baby. He is back to full heel because he basically starts off Miz TV by saying that Daniel Bryan is now banned from Miz TV for being a no-show last week, even though it was clearly shown that Bryan was attacked before Miz TV and couldn't make it out there. And even the Miz tweeted something about that, saying that, basically taking himself out of being in collusion for the attack on Daniel Bryan. So I guess they have just ditched the Miz sort of being a face, but baby going back to being a heel, baby being a heel all along, just pretending that he's a face. But now it's just heel Miz, which is fine because Miz is better as a heel anyway. He has Jeff Hardy come out for the Miz TV segment, and not just Jeff Hardy, he brings out Orton, and he just wants these two out there because he wants to stir the pot. And I guess this is WWE's way of starting to insert him into the U.S. title picture, since he's probably not going to win. And spoiler for my prediction for Backlash, but he's probably not going to win the IC Championship at Backlash. So this is going to get him started into a U.S. title picture. So he's trying to stir the pot between Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy, and Orton basically says, well, we're faces, we're cool. Which is fine and dandy, other than the fact that they've got a U.S. title match at Backlash. And which is fine because when the match actually happened, which I think it was there was a match next, because Shelton Benjamin comes out as well. And he says that he beat Randy Orton last week, who's the number 1 contender for the U.S. title. So he should also be number 1 contender for the U.S. title. And this makes, of course, a tag match between the two faces and the two heels, and Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy defeat Shelton Benjamin and The Miz. And then after the match, that's when Randy Orton hits an RKO out of nowhere on Jeff Hardy. So at that point, I'm like, okay, that's fine. Yeah, of course, face heel or whatever, Randy Orton is going to hit an RKO out of nowhere on anybody that's an opponent of his. And we've got this Sunday at Backlash. So then we had the Iconics had an interview in the back where I think Peyton Royce does a Renee Young impression and does a Midwestern accent instead of a Canadian accent. But it's okay because after Renee Young calls her out on it, they dismiss Ray Young and tell her to go hunt a moose or something. And that was really hilarious. And I really am starting to enjoy the Iconics just being silly for themselves, even though it's not really funny to anybody else, but they think it's hilarious. And it's chuckle worthy, I guess. It's not belly laugh, but it's chuckle worthy. And we had Carmella be introduced by the Iconics, and she comes out and Mella is money, basically promo over. Mella does the moonwalk to and fro, and she's going the other way, and that was okay. That was pretty funny. So this is going to lead into a match between, well, it doesn't lead into it. It was already announced, but it's a match between Carmella and the Iconics versus Becky Lynch, Asuka, and Charlotte for later that evening, and it ends up being, I believe, the main event. And so we have the opposite vignette. I'll go ahead and get into for the faces. We had Becky Lynch in the back, and at first I thought she was talking to herself, just going crazy. And she's talking to Asuka about losing the match for Asuka's first match on SmackDown. Since it was a tag team match, even though Becky got pinned, Asuka still lost. And Asuka says basically not to worry about it, now to focus on tonight, on the 6-woman tag match. And then Charlotte comes in, and then Asuka does sort of an awkward Avengers themed, I think she says Avengers Assemble. Yeah, Avengers Assemble. And it was okay. It was kind of weird to put Asuka, who's just been this badass, dominant female for the last, 3 years, and now she's making quirky Avengers Assemble lines. But anyway, we had another backstage vignette, a backstage segment with Daniel Bryan being not cleared. Okay, it's not a backstage segment. That was the bar in the New Day next. But basically, Daniel Bryan has been announced that he's not been cleared to wrestle because of the meat grinding job that Roderick Strong did on his chest, and they're afraid of infection, so he's not going to wrestle. Even though I hear he did actually do a dark match versus Nakamura or somebody during the show. I don't know if it was to start the show or to end the show, but then we had the bar walking into the arena as if they own the place, as if they're happy, even though they said that they were going to win the tag titles back and go back to Raw. But they meet up with the New Day, who's got Big E up on Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston's shoulders, and that was a little weird that they would just be hanging out like that, I guess. But the New Day welcomes the bar and has Mr. Bootyworth bring them a stack of pancakes, and here's a butler dressed guy named Mr. Bootyworth that hands them pancakes, and they smack it out of his hands, and the New Day gets mad. And this basically just sets up a match between Sheamus challenging not Big E, because Big E was up for it, but not Kofi Kingston. He's challenging Xavier Woods, who gets in Sheamus's face and says, "Your soul is mine," which is a reference to the 90s Mortal Kombat movie. Then we had another backstage segment with Rusev Day, Rusev and Aiden English, and then Lana joins the picture, and she's wearing a Rusev Day shirt. And basically Rusev asks for a moment alone with his wife, and Aiden English goes off, and Lana tells Rusev that he's been doing so well, but something's holding him back. And of course, if you didn't guess it already, she's referring to Aiden English holding back Rusev, because then Aiden English comes back in the picture. And I like the segment for what it was, but I'm just hoping, please, please, WWE, don't break up Rusev Day. Don't do it. Just add Lana. Don't break up Rusev Day. But whatever, they're probably going to break up Rusev Day, and I hope that doesn't make everybody as sad as it makes me. Then we had a Big Cass promo in the ring as opposed to backstage. Thank God they did something in the ring, even if it wasn't a wrestling match. Big Cass brings out a little person, midget, small person, whatever they're called, or like to be called, a little person dressed as Daniel Bryan to come to the ring. And he basically drops a bunch of one-liners making fun of the height of Daniel Bryan, and then says, and scene, and then tells the crowd as if they didn't already know, this isn't actually Daniel Bryan, it's just a little person dressed up as Daniel Bryan, and has the actor portraying Daniel Bryan, take a bow for the crowd, and then gets behind him, and the guy takes way too long to turn around into the super kick that we all knew was coming, but eventually, yeah, he gets kicked in the face, and Big Cass gets a lot of heat. And this was a great promo by Big Cass. Another one 2 weeks in a row. So I'm really hoping that maybe Big Cass hasn't been as generic and bland as I thought he was. He was just, the generic bland guy behind the red hot Enzo Amore. Because with Enzo Amore on the mic, you don't have to be that good at your mic skills. You're 7 foot tall, and that's all you need to be. But this was another good promo by Big Cass. So hopefully, they actually put some momentum behind him, and hopefully he actually becomes the next 7 foot dominant guy. He'll hopefully as a heel. I don't see Big Cass being a great face because he's just not that good at a promo. He's good at a heel promo, obviously, in the last few weeks, but I don't think he would be so good as a face promo. Anyway, then we had an AJ Styles interview in the ring. And then Joe comes out and interferes with the promo to say that once he gets done with Roman Reigns, he's coming after the title, basically. So this sets up hopefully Joe being the next number one contender for the WWE title, which I guess it would only make sense for AJ to win because that would be face versus heel unless Nakamura wins and it becomes a triple threat and you just add Joe. But I'll get to my predictions for Backlash soon. Not too much more on SmackDown because we're finally getting into the second match of the show after Nakamura's music hits and basically Joe turns around like he's going to fight Nakamura coming from the entranceway. And as soon as Joe turned around, I knew Nakamura from behind in the ring with the uppercut of Doom splitting AJ Styles' beanbag. No matter how many times I see Nakamura hit that low blow, it looks just as devastating every time. Jeez. Anyway, yeah, we actually finally had our second match of the night, which was the 6-woman tag match between Becky Lynch, Asuka, and Charlotte versus the Iconics and Carmella. And Asuka got her win back by making, I believe it was Peyton Royce tap out. Oh, that match is later. That's terrible. I'm in such a terrible order for this. I think the next match of the night was actually Xavier Woods and Sheamus. It wasn't much of a match. It wasn't very long. It was a little bit entertaining with the way that they traded in and out of the ring before the roll-up pin. But basically Xavier Woods won. And hopefully this is a second tag team division feud between the Bar and the New Day, at least for the next month or so, because it's good to finally give, because you don't have the fashion files around anymore to have backstage vignettes with all the tag teams that aren't being used in the title division or in the title picture. So this is good. Then we had a video from I guess a few days ago or last week of Absolution making fun of Becky Lynch for costing Asuka her match, or the tag match, and pretending like Becky Lynch wasn't standing right there while they're talking about her, and she says if she had two good arms, she'd slap them both. And that was okay. I guess that's going to build up a feud between them and Becky Lynch, which comes into play next when Absolution goes to see Paige. First time we see them get together since they were drafted over to SmackDown. And Paige basically said, look, I'm the GM of SmackDown now, and I'm no longer with Absolution. Absolution is essentially dead, and I have something for you. And of course, this was after both Absolution members think that Paige is going to give one of them a championship opportunity. And Paige says, well, which one of you it's going to be? And I think it's going to be Mandy Rose. But it's not a championship opportunity. What she was going to give her was a match with Becky Lynch. So I guess this is going to set up a feud with Becky Lynch. Again, more feuds outside of the titles, so this is good. And the future of Absolution, are they going to get a different name? Are they going to keep the name and just be, now without Paige and obviously without any favors from the front office? So we'll see. And then we had a promo for Andrade Cien Almas with Zelina Vega doing the telephone video promo, the selfie promo, and basically says that we will see him debut when he's going to debut, and they know when, and that's all that matters, and nobody needs to know. And hopefully it's soon after Backlash. That's my hope. And then we have the 6-woman tag match. That actually closes the show. Carmella basically closes the show by being at the top of the ramp, clutching her title, looking worriedly at Charlotte in the ring because the babyfaces got the victory because Asuka made Peyton Royce tap out. And that closes SmackDown. And like I said, very promo-heavy show. Obviously, I said backstage. A lot happened backstage. A lot of interviews in the ring. But it does hype me for the pay-per-view a little more than Raw did. Especially the WWE Championship match. I'm again going to have high hopes for an AJ versus Nakamura match, and we'll see if it provides the same level that we saw them progress to at the Greatest Royal Rumble, where, like I said, it seemed like they actually got into second gear in that match before it became a double countout. But this one hopefully will have a finish, and they'll get into third gear, and we'll see a really good match. I'm hoping that it doesn't go with the no DQ aspect of the match like the Ciampa and Gargano match did on NXT TakeOver, where people were expecting more in the ring and they got more hardcore, blood feud match type spots and less in the ring actually wrestling. So I'm hoping this is a good balance. But we still get to see Nakamura and AJ Styles get into third gear. And I guess I can go right into my Backlash predictions and just do the WWE Championship match first. I'm thinking that AJ Styles is going to retain. He's going to retain, and he's going to start feuding with Joe. I see Nakamura going for the low blow. And because it's finally a match where the low blow is legal, of course, AJ Styles is going to prepare for it this time. Up until now, I guess you could say he's been dumb for not wearing a cup, but in a regular match, if Nakamura is seen giving him a low blow, then he may get hit in the balls, but at least he knows he's going to win the match via disqualification. In this match, that won't get Nakamura disqualified, so it only makes sense for AJ to wear a cup. So hopefully Nakamura goes for the low blow, AJ is wearing a cup, and he goes right into the Styles Clash, because it would be easily maneuvered right into a Styles Clash. And then either that's the end of the match, or maybe that doesn't finish the match, but then AJ Styles ends up doing a low blow of his own on Nakamura, because Nakamura is not prepared with a cup. But whatever. I think AJ Styles is going to be victorious. I might as well go backwards through the card then, because I started with the WWE Championship match unexpectedly there. Roman Reigns versus Samoa Joe. I think Roman Reigns is going to win, but I'm hoping that Samoa Joe is going to win. So I'm at a crossroads here. Sometimes I like to go with my gut. Sometimes I like to go with my heart. I think Roman Reigns can stand the loss. He's had, 2 losses against Brock Lesnar in a row. He hasn't had a stellar 2018 to begin with yet. So I think, granted, given where he is in the company and the push that he's given, regardless of the boos that he gets, Roman Reigns can stand a loss. Samoa Joe would be good to gain a victory against Roman Reigns to really put claim to that number one contendership spot for the WWE Championship over on SmackDown. So I'm going to foolishly predict that Joe wins this match somehow. The SmackDown Women's Championship match, Carmella defending against Charlotte. This is hard to call because Charlotte legitimately should win this match, but Carmella has only had the title for a little bit. Of course, she got her win with the Money in the Bank, which saves the legitimacy of the Money in the Bank contract, especially it being the very first women's one. But she should not win this match, she should not win this match in any traditional manner. So I would say she only keeps the title by disqualification or some sort of shenanigans. Charlotte will win by disqualification or count out maybe. Maybe Carmella will just run off up the ramp. And it'll set up a future match probably at Money in the Bank, which would be appropriate. So I'm saying that Charlotte wins, but via some sort of disqualification, some sort of fall where she doesn't actually win the championship. Then we'll have Daniel Bryan versus Big Cass in a grudge match, and I see Daniel Bryan winning this match. I know a lot of people are saying that Big Cass needs to win this match because it's like he's getting this push and this momentum and this heat coming off of his injury, especially being put into a program with Daniel Bryan, who legitimately should be at the top of the card, if only because of the reaction he gets from the crowd, not just the fact that he's an awesome wrestler and a former world champion, multiple-time world champion. Daniel Bryan is going to win unless Big Cass cheats somehow. If he cheats but doesn't get caught, then I could see Big Cass winning, but otherwise I would say Daniel Bryan wins. So I'm just going to go with Daniel Bryan because I see this feud going forward at least until Money in the Bank, if not further down the road to SummerSlam where The Miz gets involved maybe. But Daniel Bryan wins because I don't think it matters who wins this match because this is just going to be the first match of several, I think. Then we'll have Strowman and Bobby Lashley versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And I see Bobby Lashley starting off the match, or maybe Braun Strowman starts off but gets a quick tag back to Bobby Lashley. Then Bobby Lashley somehow gets worked over by Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens for most of this match. And then Braun Strowman gets the hot tag at the end and runs over both Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and he wins the match. The only way it's going to go any different is if for some reason Bobby Lashley turns on Braun Strowman.